Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello, Christeen. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing? How was your weekend?
I am very good. My weekend was fantastic. We had a beautiful weekend. It only rained on one day. Sunday, no rain. So got to spend some time outside doing some fun things.
Yeah, the weather here has been fluctuating quite a bit between, nice mid to high 70s with some sunshine to some gloomy overcast days where it's quite cold outside. So you never quite know what you're going to get from day to day. Of course, you could check the weather, but it's still, kind of fall is saying, hey, I'm here, and you can definitely feel it in the air.
Yes, we're in the high of 60s this week, and then even lows of 40s, so it feels nice. My wife is very happy about the cool weather.
Yeah, I've been on the East Coast. I do not love the humid summers.
No, the humidity is too much. In today's episode, Christeen, we're going to explore with what matters when working with a business coach.
Yeah, and I love this topic because I get asked this question a lot when people contact me through the book. And they say, I'm looking at working with a coach. What matters? What is it? How do I know if it's the right person? I've talked to multiple people. And Steve, I feel like you and I have been in this boat as well because we continuously work with coaches. That's actually how we met, was we were working with a business coach. And, and we continue to work with, not just one, but several business coaches. And we find that one, we need to connect with the right business coach. And we need to be ready for it as well. So, I know right now I'm kind of in between to where I'm not working with a coach. I'm connecting with different groups and I'm kind of searching for that next thing. So I'm excited to talk about this for other people who might just be starting off, or maybe they're in the same place I am right now.
Yeah, and finding the right coach isn't, sometimes they appear and sometimes you have to search them out. And when the right coach is ready, they appear. One of the things when I hear coaching, a lot of this, it's not done for you. When you're getting coached or you have a good coach, there's a certain amount of work that you have to do, and you have to bring your energy and your work to the table. And, sometimes it's not always easy to reveal the truth. I've worked with coaches where my ego has gotten in the way of being totally honest and open with what was going on. And it wasn't until I was completely honest and open and willing to do, 110% of the work that they were asking me to do is when I saw the biggest growth, the largest growth, biggest steps forward in my personal development and in my business.
Yes, I think it might be good to start off with, talking about what is business coaching, because we do not just business coaching, but we also provide a peer group where some coaching conversations happen, but we're not directly, coaching everything about, their problems, their business, things like that. And then we have groups where we are coaching intentionally through, the beginning of the conversation all the way to the end of the conversation. We're not just doing check-ins and finding out where are you, but there's intensive coaching going on. So I kind of want to take a minute to talk about what is business coaching.
So business coaching is to help the owners. It's to help the CEO, sometimes even the managers of the business. It doesn't always necessarily have to be directly only the owner of the company. And it really involves a collaborative partnership between the coach and the client, and really supporting them, providing feedback, but not answers. And it's also like I said earlier, it's not a done for you. It's coaching. It's not do it for you. So you really have to show up. And The coach helps people address challenges, overcome obstacles, increase self-awareness, develop effective strategies for personal and professional growth.
Yeah. And I know, when I started getting coaching in my business, I had no clue. I'm like, well, what does this mean? What am I, getting into? How is this going to work? And I'm one of those questions who are people who always ask questions, and I want to know, what's the temperature of the water before I get in it? Before I even stick a toe in it, I'm like, well, what's the range here? What does this look like? So for me, I need to know at least enough about it for me to make a decision. And I know as well with my team members, when I sign them up for coaching or some sort of program, I want to know, like, what's the end result? Like, what's the goal of this coaching program? And I know as well that the questions or the content that gets shared can really, or how it gets shared can really impact the outcome. So I want to know if I'm going to sign up for something, or if I'm going to have my team sign up for something, the person who's teaching them or coaching them isn't going to be telling them what to do the entire time, that they're going to help get them through, the obstacles, through the change with asking effective questions.
Yeah, and it's really about asking those questions to lead people to their own discovery, so they have the buy-in and they want to fix it, they want to improve it, they want to learn more about it. One of the things that as I progressed through my business coaching was, first off, I was bleeding horribly, losing money, so I had to fix the bleed. So I learned how to do that. Next was, I had to figure out how to estimate correctly. So I had coaching around estimating and then dialing in gross profit margin. So this was over a period of years, and then onboarding a team and training it. What was interesting, after I shared my story about onboarding and training them to get them productive, that's all I had. There was no personal development, professional development after that. So then we developed, our 1,000-day development plan. So that happened over like a 15-year period. And so I had to go step 1, stop the bleeding. Step 2, learn how to estimate and price correctly. Step 3, understanding balance sheets and gross profit margins. Step 4 was people and personal development. So it's non-linear dynamic chaos is how I like to call it. It's not this linear. It doesn't happen in 60 days, 90 days, or in 1 year. So it takes time. It takes a lot of work and constantly being honest with ourselves about where am I at, what am I willing to do, and what am I actually trying to accomplish. So one of the things, like, it could be make money, which we can teach you how to do. It could be get more free time. It could be to develop a hobby. It could be to, grow a company to a certain size, really understanding what's behind those goals so we can support the real reason you're trying to achieve those goals.
Yeah, an example that comes to mind is a client that I've been working with for over 3 years. And when they first came to us, it kind of started off with, well, I don't know how my books should look, so I can gain that transparency. And I think that this profit first thing, like, there's something to it. So that's where we started through their journey, is we got their books in order. And we kind of coach them in our calls around, like, what should you know? What is this information doing for you? How is it going to serve you in your company? And we implemented Profit First, coached them on Profit First, worked with them closely, for over a year. Now they're implementing, 3 years later, advanced Profit First methods, not just the owner, but his entire team. And we had calls to help their team understand it. Then we went through some pumpkin plan things. So, looking at business strategy, growth, ideal customers, who do we serve? How do we maximize our profit? Some streamlining, which also aligns with like clockwork. So there was this whole journey with this client, and we're still working with them. Now they're a client of ours over at Green Profit Academy, where we're working with them and their leadership team around some leadership coaching. So, it's a journey, like we are saying, but the business has grown, to where they went from a couple $1 million to well over $10 million in 3 years. They have 3 locations. They have grown their team, 4 or 5 times of what it was when it started. And they have a management team in place. So, and we've worked with some of that management team, coaching them and guiding them. So really, coaching, it helps guide them. It supports them in their goals. And it's not just for, this is a perfect example. It wasn't just for the owner. It was for their key players in the company as well. And they really leaned into it and invested in that. And that's what has allowed them to get where they're at today. And I would have to add that it wasn't us doing the work. It was them doing the work, them and their team members doing the work, which is why they got such great results.
Yeah, and that's when we started Green Profit Academy. We had both experience. One of the biggest keys in good coaching was not just supporting the owner, but supporting the team that supports the owner, that supports the rest of the company, and giving that team tools and techniques on how to manage and accomplish their goals. Because as an owner of the company, we're already so overwhelmed. We don't have time to teach our team. And a lot of times our team, when we talk about our new idea or we're going to implement, they hear want, 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 want. We've created a situation where a lot of what we're saying is noise. So having somebody else come in and be the instructor and be their coach, they listen, they tune in, you get really good buy-in on that. So that has been a big part of, programs that I have had success in and programs that we're having success at Green Profit Academy.
Yeah, so I think it might be good to talk about too, like, what are some of the key focuses when working with a business coach? Because that's extremely important to know. What are we going to focus on when I work with this person, and what should that look like?
So one of the main core principles is what we're going to talk about next. And the first one is being goal setting, right? So we have to have goals that we're going to set, and they have to be, SMART goals, right? So they have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And we could have a whole podcast just on SMART goals, but it's really about, you can't have a goal, I want to make more money. Well, here's $5, you just made more money. It has to be a specific amount. And it has to be, measurable. So it's going to be an immeasurable amount over a specific period of time. And it has to be achievable. So if you're doing $1 million this year, a goal of, I want to do $17 million in 2 years is not really a achievable goal. And it has to be relevant. So if you just want to make more money, what is it supporting? We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't want to make more money at any cost, lose people, lose customers, lose our lives, our marriages to make this money. So it has to be relevant and really supporting that. And it has to be time bound. So we do a lot of quarterly and annual and 5-year goal setting and planning. So it has to be very specific in all of those categories.
Yeah, and I feel like goal setting is one of those areas that are very challenging for business owners. And, just working through our Business Accelerator program, we have a very specific process we bring them through to set up their goals, their 5-year to 10-year goals. And it helps support them to make sure that they're SMART goals and understand the concept, and also help their team understand the concept so they can set goals as well. And I think goal setting is one of those things that as an entrepreneur, we go, oh yeah, I can totally set a goal, right? It's like, even as kids, like we're like, oh, I'm going to, run this fast down the block, or I'm going to, get this test, and 100% on this test or something. Like, we have goals, right? But we're not really taught as we grow up, like, how to set goals. We understand that what goals are. We understand that we want goals and they're fun to make, but really the process in setting a goal is really important, and it can make or break the goal from happening. So it's been surprising to me, how much goal setting can be a challenge for business owners. And I feel like it's one of the main things that kind of trip them up and moving forward is they'll set a goal, they'll disconnect from the goal, they don't know how to make the goal happen, the goal gets derailed, then what? Suddenly they're changing the goal, and then the next thing, the goal has been forgotten and they're just managing chaos.
Yeah, and goal setting, a lot of goal setting, people think it's, I've done it myself, right? The first thing they want to do is they want to do revenue goals. And that's great. Revenue goals are great. But really, there's 5 functions of business that we have to have goals in, right? We have to have attract, the marketing goals. We have to have convert, the sales goals. We have to have deliver, right? What work are we going to do? How are we going to get that out to the customer goals, right? We have to have the finance goals. What are our financial goals, right? Gross profit margin, net income, and what are the systems that we're going to use for that? And then people, right? How are we going to attract, retain and train our team? So just having one goal of we're going to do X amount of revenue, but none of the 5 functions of business goals, it's almost a recipe. That's when I have the same conversations with the people and it's the same goal for 5 or 10 years and they're not moving toward it. These are not our clients, obviously, but, I'm like just in these casual conversations because they don't have goals that are supporting a larger goal. Like maybe the goal is to work less hours. Well, how do you do that with your 5 functions of business?
Yeah. So the next key focus, and I love this topic, is active listening. So a business coach should employ active listening skills so they can deeply understand their clients' challenges, concerns, or aspirations. And the other point of this that I think is really important, because I've experienced this myself, is in working with a coach, they should create a safe and non-judgmental environment where the client feels comfortable sharing their thoughts, experiences, or challenges. And this is a really important piece. And I've been on both sides of it through my experience where I felt that the coaches that I was working with, they were making assumptions and jumping to conclusions, and they weren't really understanding like where I was at, where my business was at, how I felt about things, or what my real challenges were. And then on the opposite end, I've worked with coaches that I had such a deep trust with that I was able to share things with them that I typically wouldn't share with other people. And, and these can be things like maybe we're shameful of, or we feel that we failed, or we feel like we might be judged if we share something. Like we all have these things because we're human. So in sharing those things with a coach that I deeply trusted, and I felt that they were showing up and they were listening to me, it really changed the outcome and the result of what we were working on. So the active listening piece to me is I've experienced how valuable it is in, being on both sides of the table, someone who's being coached and someone who is coaching. And so I think this is really important. And one of the most important things is make sure you're working with somebody that has those intuitive, active listening skills.
Yes, we've all been at the end of someone that is not only they're actively not listening, and they're just telling, and telling is not selling. They're not asking any questions. They're just giving advice. What's interesting, as a certified Clifton Strength coach, I'm keenly aware of when people start giving advice from their strengths. And they're not asking the person that they're giving the advice to about their strengths. What strengths can you use? And that's when we do our Clifton Strength coaching. It's really about finding out and becoming aware and identifying their talents and strengths and using those to step into at an even deeper level to overcome challenges, meet their goals, and work with their teams. So when I hear people coaching and giving advice from their own strengths without the active listening, now I'm keenly aware of it. It can be a bit painful. The other thing is to have people that really ask the extra questions. I have a theory that we all have our 3 easy questions, our 3 easy answers that we give, but it's getting past those easy answers that you give everyone else and being really honest with what is really driving your goals, what's driving you to continue forward. And that comes through some questions. And I love when I'm going through a series of questions and then getting past all the easy, and then the whole conversation slows down. the tone and seriousness of everything changes from casual to really concentrated and impactful. So that's one of my favorite parts of coaching, is getting past the easy questions and easy answers.
Yeah, which kind of brings us to our next key focus of, coaching, right? So it's powerful questioning. And this is another, fun topic for me, is powerful questions. We do in our coaching program at our retreat, which is one of my favorite activities, is, cue storming, and which is question storming. And it's something that we learned from our certified question officers course with Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And it is such a valuable tool. And once people use it, and I remember when there was one gentleman we taught it to, and he's like, yeah, I just don't really get, like what this is going to do. And I'm just not sure yet. But I'll go with it. And then by the end of learning it and actually applying it, it was their favorite part of the program, was utilizing this cue storming and asking questions. And I love coming up with powerful questions. And, it's like, they just, kind of come to me, and I'm like, okay, now which question am I going to ask? And it's, relevant. It's extremely important to me that it's relevant. So business coaches use carefully crafted questions to provoke, deep thinking. Like, that's the whole point of these powerful questions, because the purpose is to shift the perspective of the person being coached. So we don't want to just come up with these random questions. We want to be intentional about how we ask them and what is it that we're asking, because we really want self-reflection to happen. We want the question to encourage new insights and help the client to explore alternative approaches to really solving their problem, so changing their approach. So it's not the same thing they've always been doing, because if, that's the definition of insanity, right? It's like, keep doing the same thing over and over again. So the powerful questions can really get them to look at things from that new perspective.
And there is a system for asking questions. When we do cue storming, there's a protocol that you go through and everything. And one of the things that I love about the cue storming is people think that it's only for the person that we're asking the questions to. But actually, it's for the entire group that is going through this exercise, because what it does is it strengthens our question muscle. So we have to think of questions that are not easy. We have to think of questions that haven't been asked. So it gets our curious mind in high gear. So when we go back to our business and our life, then we have that curiosity muscle going and building, so we can ask ourselves those deeper questions. And I love to hear at the end of, when we do a cue storming, people will share, I've never been asked those questions before. And it really gets them to think of, it creates a sense of clarity and transparency. And there's such a high level of satisfaction. Like you said, people, I don't know, I'll go along with it. But at the end of it, they're like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. And it just keeps the momentum of being curious and innovative, that innovative, creative energy going.
All right. So our next focus for, what are the factors that are important when working with a coach is accountability. And Steve, I'll let you unpack this one.
So business coaches emphasize accountability, where coaches hold clients responsible for their commitments, their actions, and their progress towards their goals, because we're always looking to make progress. Coaches may use various accountability methods such as regular check-ins, goal tracking, and performance assessments. And in our coaching, we do a once a month check-in to see where they are with their accountability. And the accountability is a huge factor. It's not just the big goal, it's those monthly and quarterly goals that we're holding people accountable to, and also the emotional connection to those goals. So it's nice to write something out on a piece of paper a year, like a year from now, this is what's going to happen. But then we go through all this emotion. Oh, a truck was stolen that got retrieved. This just happened to a client. That was very emotional. Like, oh my gosh, they stole the whole crew, truck and trailer and everything that came back. Or we lose an employee, or we get a new employee, or the weather is challenging, or we have something personal in our life. So, we're coaching people through this kind of emotional roller coaster, using their goals, using their quarterly and annual and 5-year plans to keep them focused on what they're trying to accomplish. Because there's just so many like little roads and trails and paths that we can get lost down over a year or 5 years. So accountability, making sure, are you still heading to where you wanted to go? That's the question.
Yeah, and I've noticed in our peer groups and our small group coaching that we have is the people who show up and they really share like, hey, this is what I accomplished and this is what I'm going to accomplish, and they're prepared. They gain the most traction in business. They have the, more wins than the other ones. So this is, where in working with a business coach, it's really important. And this is on the person being coached. This is the doing side for them, right? Not only do they have to go off and do these action items, they actually have to plan out, like, what am I going to be accountable for, and hold themselves to it, and then come back and report. It's not on the coach to hold you, to that. They can say like, hey, you didn't do that. That's on you. But it's really the person being coached. If you're investing in a coaching program and you want that accountability piece in place, you need to show up and say, hey, this is what I did, and this is what I'm going to do. And then you come back, this is what I did, and this is what I'm going to do. And that gives the coach the ability to show up and support you at a deeper level for each coaching call. Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
And I always tell people, we'll meet you where you're at. A lot of times people think they're ready for a goal and they're not quite ready, or they don't think they're ready for a goal, and the coach sees that they're ready for that goal. So it's really supporting them where they're at, and also helping them align that.
Yeah. And then the next piece is an action-oriented approach, which is important. It's kind of like what Steve is talking about here, as well as, making sure they're ready for it. But business coaching focuses on taking action and implementing tangible strategies to achieve desired outcomes. So coach's job is to encourage the client to identify potential solutions, set up an action plan, and evaluate progress regularly. And we were just kind of unpacking this with one of our peer group, to where they're like, well, we don't think we're ready for this yet. And this is what we're thinking, and these are our ideas. And they were absolutely right. They were following their intuition. They were being aware of their environment and their needs in their life and their business. And they had some thoughts around what could come next. And we were able to support them at a deeper level to understand, okay, let's slow down to go fast. Let's focus on this. This is how it's going to create a better foundation for your business in the next year. Let's focus on this next. and this next. And so it gave them the steps that they needed and that they were ready for to move forward in their business. And just having that conversation, like I could hear the relief in their voice and even see it on their face and the excitement of, moving forward with action steps.
Yeah, action steps are they're critical to and crucial to making progress in the whole business, and even like the Clifton strength. So it's not just to find out what your strengths and talent themes are, it's how to put them into action, and there's the process we go through: name it, claim it, and aim it. And so naming what your talent themes and strengths are, claiming them, becoming really aware and familiar with what they are, and then aiming them into an action step. How do we take that and put that into action and create a very specific action step? So the action steps are, it's how things get done, and the accountability feeds right into that. This is what people are going to do. This is what I'm going to be held accountable to. So the action steps, coaching is not, all just fluff. It is really putting things into action. And my number one talent theme strength is activator, which is to go, to get things moving. I'm not a finisher, so I need people on my team to follow through with everything. But, getting people going, and that's why I feel like that's one of my strengths as a coach, is getting people moving, getting people going in the direction toward their goals. So definitely action. If you're going to work with a coach, look for some action.
Yeah. And then the next one is develop self-awareness. And this is, I think, one of the focuses that are most rewarding in my experience because of my strengths and how I show up, to where, I have strategic, and then, I have relator and individualism. So I'm really connecting with who am I working with and where are they at and where are they going? And what are some of the obstacles that are going to trip them up? So the development of self-awareness, when I see a client experience this and I've seen how much they've grown over the years, that is, what fills my cup. That's where I show up and I'm supporting all these people. That makes my day, is when I see this. And, business coaches, their purpose is to foster self-awareness. So helping them understand their strengths, which, Steve is a pro at. He even helps me and my team understand our strengths, as well as our weaknesses, where our values and our beliefs are. That self-awareness that allows individuals to make more informed decisions. So instead of making a decision from fear, they're making a decision based off of, their goals, their values, and even moving forward instead of staying in one place, and aligning their actions, with their personal values as well. So making sure that that's connected, and just enhancing not just their overall performance, but their team's performance, and maybe even some of their personal relationships. So the development of self-awareness, it can go far and wide when you're working with a coach. And it doesn't just have to be about business. It can have an amazing impact on your personal life as well.
Yeah, the self-awareness, once I got past the, do we have enough sales? Do we have profit? Do we have order? Then I really stepped into the self-awareness, and it's been a huge part of my life for the past 5 years. The choice map is a huge, has had a huge impact, and is a big tool. Learner path, judge your pit, switching questions. We use that every day at my place of work. We use it every day at home, and my team has brought it home with their families and their friends. I've used it even with my friends, talking about their family. And also the Clifton Strengths is a huge contributor to that development. Instead of wondering what's wrong with us and how do I fix what's wrong with me, there's actually nothing wrong with you. You're literally perfect the way you are. It's really about identifying what is perfect about you and stepping into that, into, even more into your daily life, into your relationships, and letting people be let them know and have them be aware that this is who you are. This is your strengths, and what to expect, and what they can expect from you and that relationship, whether at work or home.
Yeah. And I've seen, some of the strengths work that you have done with, not just business owners, but they're emerging leaders. And I've seen, our clients that go through the coaching program, and they are showing up differently as leaders now. They're engaging people in a way that they had never engaged with them before. They're solving problems that they were afraid of solving, like that fear of conflict or tough conversations. So they're really understanding how their strengths show up and how it can serve them as being a true, authentic leader in their business. And I think that's a lot of this is the self-awareness about who we are, and who we are is okay, but how can we allow it to show up and connect with other people and lead people, not manage them. So I think that that's really important.
And that's the whole thing. And we've talked about this, when you're leading people, what you see at the workplace is inspired, desired accountability. So your team now is stepping up above what is required of them. They can answer things. They can ask better questions. And one of the things working with the emerging leaders is watching their development as leaders through questions. Asking way better questions, stronger questions, more specific questions of their team and also of the people around them. The choice map that I've worked with a couple of different leaders on has changed their life. I'll get a random text like, hey, this is what's going on. And it's directly related to my work around the choice map. And again, with the Clifton strengths, feeling like, oh, I'm not good at this, so I'll never be good at anything, or I'm not good at this, I'll never be the superstar I want to be, as opposed to stepping into their strengths and talents. And when I see their leadership improve through their curiosity or through their strengths, and I point that out, they're so happy. They're like, I did that for you. I wanted you to see me stepping into my strengths.
Yeah. And then the last focus that we're going to unpack on this is the results-driven mindset. And Steve, did you want to talk about this? I mean, I think it feeds to your activator.
It does. I always want to get going on everything. So business coaching emphasizes a result-driven mindset. So we want to get things done. We want to accomplish stuff where the client focuses on tangible outcomes and measurable progress towards their goals. Coaches work with clients to set relevant benchmarking, track progress, assess effectiveness of strategies to ensure continuous improvement. And, that's one of my whys. The why actually is to provide motivation and to encourage people to continue forward regardless of the challenges so that we grow in mutually fulfilling relationships. So always moving forward regardless of what the challenge is. But we want outcomes. And I had been in a previous coaching group for a number of years, and there's always that 1/3 group that gets all this stuff done, 1/3 that struggles, and 1/3 that came back every year with the same exact challenges. They didn't make any progress. And what I kind of figured out after a number of years is because they were being told to do it the way the coach would do it and not step into their own strengths and talents and do it their way with their strengths and talents. So when we're working with people, we really want them to step into their strengths and talents because we need that result.
Yeah. And I know one of the things that you shared with me a long time ago was not having all the facts, right? Like we can't drive towards results or have that mindset if we don't have all the information. And one of the things that was really hard was to support anybody who showed up who didn't have their financials in hand, right? Who didn't know their numbers, if their numbers weren't clear, so we couldn't coach or support or even ask powerful questions around certain things because we didn't have all the facts. So I think that it's important on both sides is, not just to have the facts in hand, but to be honest about what you're bringing to the table and what the true nature of the situation is. And that can allow not only you to be focused on, your results, but also your coach and them being able to support you better in working with them, because they know, like, okay, what is it that you're trying to achieve? And let's make sure all those obstacles are removed or addressed for us to get there.
Yeah. As much as we're going to work with Clifton Strengths with clients, we're going to work with the choice map, I still am going to look at their balance sheet, cash flow statement, and their P&L. So we're still going to look at, what's going on in their business, because, a lot of times we've seen, Uncle Joe, our friend Tim, they give us this business advice. You know what you should do? But they haven't seen any of our financials. They're not giving us advice based on anything other than their opinion. They haven't seen our balance sheet, our P&L, our cash flow statement. So if anyone is giving me advice without seeing any of my financial statements, I don't use it at all, because without understanding A, where I am financially, or B, what my goals are, it's really not advice. It's just somebody talking at me.
Yeah. So overall, business coaching, it aims to empower the individual, the entrepreneur, the emerging leader, the team member, whoever it is that's signing up for it, within the organization, by unlocking their potential, fostering growth, and driving success. So that is, what the end result is it going to foster growth? Is it going to drive success? And is it going to unlock their potential? So that's where that mindset and that awareness and self-awareness really show up. And, that's the factor, the ending, result that you want when working with a coach.
And when you're thinking about, or maybe you have a coach, one of the things that I really push through for coaching is that the coaching is an investment. It should actually never cost. It's not a cost, because the benefit of that coaching is going to far outweigh the spend. And, from good coaching, I've seen that over and over again. And from coaching that is not fully developed for that person that's being coached, it can become a cost as opposed to be an investment. But, our goal is always to make sure that, the return on the coaching is, 5-10x of what the investment is.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. So I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Steve, and ask you, what are some examples that would display a return on investment in coaching? Like, if somebody signed up for coaching, what does that look like that they're getting an ROI?
Right. So first thing we want to do is track the finances. We definitely want to look at not just what the P&L is, but what the balance sheet is, right? Am I making enough money? What do I need to make? Simply identifying what do I need to make for me and my family as the owner. That's a great point to start at. And so profitability, do they have a system for profitability and cash? Their gross profit margin, do they have their pricing dialed in? And that's one of the first things that I work on. What is the structure of their business? How many hours a week are they working? So if they're working 80 hours a week and they're going broke, we got to fix the go broke, and then we'll go fix the 80 hours a week. So it's really about personal first, making sure the owner is financially and physically and emotionally healthy. And then, so that's the first measure. And then we can start balancing the business. Like, are your ratios correct? What is your spend on your labor? What is your spend on your equipment? And those are the two biggest kind of overspends that we typically see. So that's the financial part. And then the other thing is kind of painting a picture of reality, what we can do in 1 year, what we can do in 3 years, and what we can do in 5 years. Because as an activator, I want everything to happen really fast, but I've learned that everything takes time. And I actually came up with a 1,000-day rule, because by the time I think about something, I research it, put it into action, revamp it, and it's completely dialed in, and then I delegate it to somebody else. It's about 3 years. So there's a realistic timetable for everything. So, not over promising, but making sure this is what we can do in quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, year 1, 2, 3, 4. But really the money is one side of it, but also it's the mental health. And many times I have gotten calls where people are in full-blown panic over something and whatever else is feeding it. And then we just go back up, what's true, what's really happening, what's going on, and having them slow down and look at it on the learner path with what's true, what's possible, what do I want, and have them focus. So the coaching should help you really stay focused on moving forward.
Yeah. And I love that, like, what's true, right? And what are we focusing on? Because a lot of the times when people show up to work with us, I've noticed, and even, in my professional associates groups, like, we'll start having conversations. And this happens with me too, right? To where it's like, what I think is the problem is not the problem. And so slowing down and taking a few steps back and having some conversations and coming up with a solution. And some of the things that I've seen when people show up to work with us on that ROI, and this is where I get really excited when we start working with somebody, is we start looking at the pricing. And typically what we find is the pricing is a problem. Right? Pricing is always a problem. So it's either, they're not making profit. Why are they not making profit? It ties back to how they're pricing their services, their material, their labor to produce those services, and their equipment. And just by us addressing that out the gate, it not only puts them in a profitable state within the year, sometimes almost instantly, and definitely instantly on the jobs that they haven't started producing on yet. But then it pays for whatever coaching program they have. Like, it's going to pay for 10 years of coaching, just making that one adjustment out the gate. Some of it's not pricing. Some of it could be, well, we have these people on our team and this is what we're paying. And we discover that they don't need to be paying those people when they're not the right people. They're not in the right places, and they're not doing the right things because what they're doing is not profitable at all. So just by us removing that, it creates profit in the business and revenue that they didn't have before because other pieces of the business were supporting that. So not only is it giving to the business and the financial health, but again, it pays for that coaching, 10 times over. So those are the ROIs that I've experienced just like right out the gate, where I get giddy because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing that we could do this in such a short period of time.
Yeah. Typically, on average, I also do business visits with people. Typically, we find about $60,000 on a visit in one day, not even 10 hours. In a 6 to 8 hour day, we'll make them. I can show them how to make $60,000, and it's right in front of them. And it's kind of like a magic trick. Once you learn how a magic trick is done, you're like, it's not so mystical or special anymore. Once I show them where that 60 grand is, it's like right in front of their face. They're like, oh. It was literally right in front of me. But because we're so involved in our own businesses and we're so committed to everything, we don't look at it from that perspective. And, sometimes I've helped people not like blow up their business. They're like, I have to raise all my prices. It's like, well, slow down. Let's see which accounts and which services were not priced correctly. Let's focus on those first. We're not going to blow up. We're not going to brushstroke prices across the board for everybody. Let's be strategic about this. And they'll find there's 20% of their customers or 20% of their services that they're bleeding. The whole company is bleeding out of that little 20% valve. So taking the time, so that ends up paying for whatever, that's the ROI on that. And also just, are they getting ROI on their equipment and looking at each piece of equipment? And that's, typically a good way to make about $60,000.
Yeah.
In a day without adding a crew, selling a job, hiring a person. It's pretty, it's one of my favorite things to do.
All right. So before we tie up our podcast for today, I want to share, like, what are the essential qualities to look for in working for a business coach? And this is something that after working with a business coach, like, I didn't ask these questions before I started. I just didn't know yet that I should be looking for these things. But it's something that I've learned through my journey of working with business coaches and different coaches over time. So I think it's important to share, like I would like to share these qualities that we should look for. So if you haven't started working for one yet, with one yet, and you're looking at it, like you're going to be more prepared than I was. And I'm probably assuming this, but Steve was probably in the same place with me to where he's like, I need a coach. I don't know what that looks like. I'm just going to start working with one. And so we'll start with, the first quality that and skill that you want to consider, which is expertise and experience. And I know this is where, Steve kind of in his beginning, and I share this in the book, he was in a place where he just signed up with working with a triage coach that helped him kind of, get out of the mud and the muck in his business. But there were, in the long term, he realized that there was some experience and expertise that were missing in that situation. So I'm going to, Steve, let you kind of talk about this, because I know it was how your journey started out was they didn't have the experience and expertise that you were looking for or needed.
Yeah. So when I started working with that triage coach, they were really good at saving businesses and stopping the bleeding. So when you're looking for a coach, you want to look for a coach that has relevant experience and expertise in your industry and field. And they should have a strong track record of success themselves, demonstrating their ability to guide and mentor others effectively. So how does that work, right? So the triage coach was great. They got me to a certain point, but to go past that, I needed another type of skill set and knowledge set. So one of the things in Green Profit Academy is, I've been in the green industry for 40 years. I've done everything wrong that you can multiple times. So I've learned nope, that does not work. You cannot be cheap and have a good gross profit margin. You cannot be cheap and pay your bills. Short term, you can borrow money to pay your bills, but long term, that's going to catch up with you. You have to have your pricing. And the other thing I really learned was you can't sell on price, right? You have to serve your clients and customers. And that is by providing them high quality, being prompt and really being a good vendor to your clients, not being the cheap vendor. So having someone that also can support my team. So not all the coaching that I had was very friendly to the entirety of the team. So it was more for the owner and maybe for one other person in the company, but it was not able to support or help my whole team grow. So then I had to do it, which got pushed off and kicked down the road. And so having somebody that can support you and your team is very, very important. They have to have really good communication and listening skills. They have to have high emotional intelligence. And we work really hard on this. And that's why I tell people, we'll meet you where you're at. I'm not trying to put you into my box. We're here to support you and have you move forward. They also have to have a high level of strategic thinking. And I know that is Christeen's number one strength.
Yeah. And the strategic thinking for me, it's, I can't help it, but in a conversation that we're having or a coaching conversation, and I hear the person talking about their challenge or their problem, and I'm instantly going to where the gaps are. I'm like, okay, I see this opportunity, that possibility, this or that, and I'm bringing it to the table. So it really helps them identify, the opportunities, mitigating the risk, kind of weighing and measure, about what's the solution to these challenges? How are we going to get there? And a strategic thinker, I have a couple on my team and we work really fast together. I have to say, we kind of move at that light speed when two strategics are working on a project, because we assess the situation quickly and we get to the end. And sometimes in coaching, and this is one of the things that frustrated me the most, don't question me to death. Do not ask me so many questions that I'm not getting answers. I'm here for a reason. So sometimes they just need a strategic solution that they can chew on. And that's what I needed. I needed a solution. I was so far in the weeds and I wasn't getting the answers that I needed. I needed a solution that I could chew on. So I will ask so many questions and then I will see where we hit against a wall and I will present a strategic solution and say, okay, what about this? And I like to do the 1, 2, 3. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Go think about this and bring it back to me. what does this look like? So it's important, I think, the communication and listening skills, the emotional intelligence for them to be able to support you and understand where you're at and guide you through situations. And then also know, when is it time to present a strategy or even come up with strategic questions that can get you there yourself.
And a high strategic will always have 3 ways to solve every single issue or challenge. Yeah. And I love strategics. I've surrounded them in my whole life, both at work and at home. And, one of the things about strategic is you can always count on them to see things very differently than other people, and come up with multiple ways to solve the same issue. So not only do they see the issue, they have ways to solve it in multiple ways, which means you can find a way that really connects to your strengths and talents and use that way, because all 3 could be equally successful. The next one, you want a coach that can help with problem solving, and look for a coach who can help analyze complex problems and create effective solutions. A couple of weeks ago, I was looking at a balance sheet, and I love ratios. To me, everything needs to be in a ratio of, right? Percentage of. And so I was going through this, and without any calculations, I knew immediately one of the ratios was off, because one of the input numbers was a tax amount, it was incorrect. There's no way that could have been correct. We looked at it, and yes, the bookkeeper had made an error, and we fixed that. But having a coach that can look at your numbers and look at your goals and help you identify what the goals or ratios or what problem solving you need. Again, strategics are great at that also. Accountability and motivation.
Yeah, we talked quite a bit about this, a little bit earlier here. Is a coach, one, you need to make sure like that coach has some sort of accountability with you, like some sort of, you have respect for them, right? To where you feel that you can hold them accountable. I know several of the people that I work with, that I've been working with for a while, they joke about how, well, you don't want Christine to say she's going to come to your business. Because I will. So, those things where, do you have respect for them? Are they showing up as a leader for you or a mentor, to where it's like you want to follow through and have, that desired, aspired accountability that Steve and I were talking about? Are they asking the question, saying like, okay, what did you accomplish? What held you back from accomplishing that? Let's unpack that and get to the bottom of that. Okay, what's next? So you want them to push you. And that ties to the next one too, which is the flexibility and adaptability, right? Is the awareness around that as business owners, we're in a fluid environment, right? So it's rapidly changing, and it's crucial to have someone on your team that can adapt to the solutions, the approach to the challenges, and the strategies accordingly to what's happening now, right? Because it's never the same. And that's one of the things I love about small business is it's forever changing, and it's exciting. It's, not redundant. We're not doing the same thing over and over again every day. We're in there handling problems. So making sure that the coach that you're working with is flexible, they're open to new ideas, they're learning from you just as much as you are learning from them. And, knowing that they're there to understand your unique needs and circumstances and not be so fixed on an idea.
Yes, a know-it-all coach is very annoying and very challenging to work with, because business changes, people change, environments change, and if they're stuck in a very fixed mindset, it can become very limiting. Next is the trustworthiness and confidentiality of the coach. A business coach should maintain the utmost integrity, maintaining the client's trust and confidentiality. You want to look for someone who's professional, reliable, and respects your privacy.
Yeah. And, so if they're using your name or associating your business and they haven't asked permission about that specific thing, like that's not okay. We don't talk about businesses' names. We'll say this client or that client. And we also don't talk about our clients with each other. When we do experience shares, or we're talking about like this client had this challenge, it is completely anonymous, and it's a rising tide. So the anonymous person in that situation has helped somebody else, and we're not promoting it or breaking the confidentiality. And we make sure in all of our groups and our workshops, and this is important, we're continuously making the point of, if you are watching a video of your coaching, be careful where you watch it from. Every team member that's involved in this program, it is confidential information, and we ask that you be respectful of that. So we're educating them on the idea as well. We're telling them again, and then we're telling them what we told them about the respect and confidentiality of the people in the group.
And the last is networking and connections. A coach, you want to work with a coach who has a robust network and connections in the industry and can provide additional resources, opportunities for your growth. That may be they introduce you to other potential partners, clients, or investors, enhancing your business prospects.
Yeah, and I would also say cultural fit. So this is really important to make sure that whatever coach that you decide to work with, the cultural fit. And when we say culture, it's like what you're doing and how you're doing it in your business. So consider whether the coach's values, their personality, or even their communication style aligns with your own and with your business, and that it can enhance the coaching relationship and, the collaboration that you're working towards just engaging with a business coach. And when people ask me, I tell them, hey, I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. This is how I'm going to approach our conversations, and there's times, and I've had this conversation with clients, there's times that you're going to hate me. You're going to be so mad, you're going to see red, but that's okay, because once you get through it, you're going to come back and you're going to realize why we went through that or what the purpose was behind it. And I guarantee that every person that I've worked with that had that moment of frustration, or, they were despising me for a day or two, they love me more now than they did in the beginning. So we're all friends and we're very connected.
Yes, and I'm laughing because I remember getting a phone call from someone. Why does Christine have to ask me such hard questions? How am I supposed to know this and that and everything? And that was probably 4 years ago. And now I know that they are literally your biggest fan, and they couldn't see how it was going to be helpful. And no one had asked those business questions before. But what's interesting was it led to a path of growth for that person. And he had a fixed mindset of what business looks like. And once he pushed past that, I mean, his business is more than doubled, and he works less than half as much as he used to. But he needed to be asked those questions, which was very frustrating for him because of that fixed mindset that he had to work past, he did the work. You ask the question, and that's what a coach does. So cultural fit is huge. I had coaches that I thought were good fits until I really got to understand what they were about, and I had to discontinue the coaching. But they still have clients that it's a good cultural fit for them. You have to be who you are, and everyone has a culture. So that's you got to find someone that's a cultural fit for you. Okay, remember, selecting the right business coach is a subjective decision, so it's essential to consider your specific needs and goals, where you are in your business and your life, and interview potential candidates to ensure they align with your expectations.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope this episode helped you today if you're considering working with a business coach, if you've been toying around with the idea, maybe you finished up with your current business coach and you're looking for another one, or maybe it's a coach in different areas. Like I work with coaches on, leadership coaches, speaking and communication coaches. So whatever coach that you're looking for to work with next to move not only yourself, but your business and your team forward. I hope this information that we discussed today was insightful and it gave you the knowledge you needed and confidence to move forward with a business coach.
And we look forward to you joining us on the next podcast. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
The show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.